Smorgasbord Radio Show.
Hello, everybody. This is a SmorgShow podcast, the Smorgasbord Radio Show. Back in the saddle again, and I'm your host, Chris. Waiting for my co-hosts to arrive. I hear them coming down the stairs. Hey, you guys came in the same car this time.
All right.
How fuel efficient of you.
Yeah, well, I'm green.
Well, if you remember last time I was here, we took the helicopter in and we landed on that guy. You remember?
Yeah.
And remember when I said, don't worry, he'll be fine?
Yeah,
He wasn't fine.
Not so fine.
No, so no more helicopters.
I don't think he made it, actually.
Well, welcome back to the SmorgShow Lair. It's episode 99, October 27th, 2018. And boy, this has been a really busy month. Oh, by the way, thank you. This is Dave Jackson, and this is Jerry Malauskas.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, everybody else.
You guys you've really carried the 90s for me. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Episode 90 all the way through now. You guys have been regulars, which has been yeah, it's been fantastic having you out here.
Because now that Allie has a life,
Allie is no longer.
we're here for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You're carrying me through the
lonely period.
The lonely period. It's a period of adjusting for me with Allie off in college and trying to find
her own way.
Well, yeah, I think she's got her way. I'm trying to find my way.
Oh, okay.
Because, you go through, as a father for 20 years, I sort of put my other life on hold and I kind of forgot what that life was for 20 years. And now I'm being thrown back into it. And that's why I've been doing more of this, because this is all I know outside of being a dad.
Yeah, well, you got it back.
Hey, you do.
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah, you think so?
Yep.
Well, I just appreciate your friendship. And for those of you listening, you don't appreciate it the way I can right now, but we've repositioned the studio, have a new configuration now. And I can't believe it took me 99 episodes to figure this out. But up until now, we've been we had these two microphones at our main console, but it forced us to look directly ahead. Mm-hmm. So I've got my face staring at my Mac. You got your face staring at the sound equipment over there, the mixer and all that, and we're not looking at each other. But if we wanted to look at each other, we would have to turn our face and we would be off mic. So now I've got it reconfigured in the studio. We're looking at each other, right. And this has got a totally different vibe already.
And Jerry will probably still bump the mic with his head and his headphones a couple times.
Hey, watch
today.
out. But anyway, that's
that's one of the things you get used to in radio is that you don't have to really be seeing the person you're talking to. That's actually pretty common. Sometimes you go to somebody who's doing a traffic report or the weather or something, and they're not even in the same room with you.
That's right.
They're in another part of the building. Yeah. So
yeah.
You get used to that, and you get used to also when you turn, you make sure that you're still speaking directly into the mic, even when you change your axis of direction.
Yeah.
But this is so much nicer because it's more conversational.
Yeah, I like this a lot. We'll probably put some pictures of the studio up online with this episode, just to give you an idea what it's looking like in here. But yeah, I'm feeling good already. So we got a lot to do tonight. I have a feeling this is going to be a very, very long episode. And the reason being is this is really going to be a double episode. I had two things in mind. First of all, last month actually, Dave and I went to the 50th anniversary of the WDGC studio, our high school radio station. They had the alumni. Yes. Anybody who was on the radio over that 50-year period was invited back, and we got our own on-air slot. So Dave and I did a 1-hour show on our old stomping grounds, 88.3 FM Downers Grove, suburban Chicago. That's right. And
it confirmed for me that all those years actually happened.
Yeah. It's really strange. for the past 10, 15 years, I've had reoccurring dreams. You know, like that dream that you hear about that you're in college and you're always late to class or you miss the final exam.
Yes.
And it's recurring and it's supposed to tell you that
there's a radio version of that dream.
I've had a dream that I found myself doing a show again in that studio with you.
Okay.
And I thought this podcasting thing would have erased that, but no, every few months I have this dream.
Was something wrong? Like you couldn't find the next thing to put on, or
there's usually an
there
underlying
was
reason.
something to come up next and you don't have it. You're not prepared. Usually that dream is about, I don't have the next record ready. I don't have the commercial that I need to play, or
something.
I'm supposed to say something and I don't have my script or whatever. That dream is usually, everybody has that dream. In radio.
Some
You
loose
keep hearing
ends that wasn't,
something's
tied
missing.
up. Yeah.
You're not prepared.
Probably something there. So I want to see now if that 1 hour thing puts to rest those recurring dreams. We'll find out. But I want to come back. I just want to talk a little bit about first reactions to that. But once we get through that, we're going to be switching moods and mode on this show significantly. We're going to go and do something that we did many years ago. We had SpookFest. When Allie and I first did the show, we did SpookFest in 2010 and 2011. And it was just a mixture of Halloween related activities, sound effects and just ghost stories and things like that. And I thought we'd try to recreate that tonight here. And Allie has actually recorded a couple of dramatic readings that I'm hoping to embed in here somewhere. So we got a lot of that. But then, for those of you who are still awake, still listening, hanging in there, at the very end of the show, we're going to play an interview that we just had a couple hours ago with somebody who was also on the radio station with us, Sandy Rizzo.
Yes.
She was, I guess she represented the 1970s for us, for me. And so we're going to talk to her a little bit about what it was like on the radio station back in the 70s and some of her memories of the radio station, which I think is going to be really interesting for, well, anybody who's into radio, I guess, because we really geek it up.
Sandy had some great stories.
It was a good interview. I really enjoyed
was.
getting to know her better through her stories and memories. So we've got a lot jam-packed, so let's get started here. So let's talk about the reunion. Let me just tee it up that I had no idea that this was coming. I turned off Facebook notifications, I don't know, a couple months ago because I didn't want to know anything anymore. I just wanted to turn them off. And apparently they've been planning this reunion for a while. And I got a message from Dave saying, hey, did you know about this? It's coming up this weekend. Like, really? And they were doing this reunion. So I said, let's do it. And they were asking for you to sign up for on-air slots. I said, Dave, you want to do a show? He said, absolutely.
Do I want to do a show?
Do I want to do a show?
Is the Pope Catholic?
Please.
So we did a show. And so episode 98, we played the entire episode that we did that was broadcast here on local radio here in suburban Chicago. And obviously a lot of memories there. It's not for everybody. It's really just for, it was for us.
It was partly self-serving, maybe mostly. But I thought we were somewhat entertaining if somebody was listening.
And that's sort of the attitude I've taken with this podcast. It's like, I don't really care if anybody's not interested. It's really, for me, it's having fun.
It's something that we do for us, and hopefully somebody else wants to share in that.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what I'd say.
We're not worried about ratings or anything like that.
That's right.
Podcast.
Thankfully.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess there are podcasts that have very big ratings. I wouldn't know who they are.
Downloads, yeah.
Downloads, yeah, that's what I meant, downloads.
Well, we were getting some pretty high download rates when we did the show more regularly back then.
Right.
We had quite a. But what's really interesting was when I check out the stats every now and then, I still see that people are downloading, episode 20, and there's like, I think the largest, the most downloaded show we did was our radio reenactment of Sorry, Wrong Number.
Oh, that was a good one.
And I think it's because people actually search for that online because that's a very famous radio play and they came across our reenactment. So for those of you who are into old time radio dramas, we have, I think, 10 or 11 different recreated shows, stories throughout our 99 episodes.
Yeah, they're all great too.
And Dave, you played a part in a
couple
few
of them.
Jerry,
Yeah.
you were in It's a Wonderful Life. You were Potter.
Mr. Potter.
Yes.
Get off my lawn.
Happy New Year to you.
In jail.
In jail. So back to the reunion. Any closing comments on that? You had a good time?
I had a great time. There were a lot of people there I would have wanted to talk to more, but it seemed like we mostly found people that we gravitated toward when we were in school, and we spent most of the time with the people that we knew, which I suppose that's not odd.
Yeah.
But, we spoke with Dan Nicholson a lot. We spent time with him, John Duncan, and Sandy was there. So we had some time with Sandy, but she was busy. She was talking. She knew a lot of the people there too. So
yeah.
So it would have been nice to maybe talk to some more of the people. How many people were there, would you say? About 30?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe something like that.
It seems like we had the most representation from the 70s. A very small group from the 80s.
Right. Well, like you mentioned, it was very emotionally overwhelming because as soon as we walked into the door, people were asking us to do IDs for the station, and then seeing Mr. Moore, our instructor from high school days. So there was an emotional element there. Of course, you've seen him a few times performing.
Right.
And I've seen him only once since high school.
And then his son, Kirk Moore, was doing the show, the slot before us, and he called us in.
He called us in.
I wasn't ready to
We weren't ready to go on.
He just says, hey, come on, Chris.
Hey, come on in. So we did that. And then the microphone wasn't turned on for a while. We were talking. We weren't on. But that's okay.
Just like the old days.
We all laughed about it. But
yeah.
Yeah, but the takeaway was it felt there was a certain closure there for me. Mm-hmm. And then when we did our show, it's sort of psychologically, maybe it was just, I don't want to overthink this, but it was kind of like just wrapping it all up till that point. And now we're moving forward.
Yeah.
With this podcast, moving forward with our ideas for radio, things like that. And we can kind of maybe move forward and do some new things now and maybe reminisce a little bit less.
Yeah.
Because we got kind of all that out of us at the reunion.
And then I don't know what just came over me, but when I saw Sandy there, I just said, it just feels right. I'm going to go up to her. I'm going to say, hey, I want you on our podcast.
Right. It just had to be. It was something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all were all like.
She's like, who are you guys?
We're all simpatico or something. We just had to ask her to come on. So it was great.
It's a connection to
total radio geekdom.
Yeah, but it's our story, but it's also somebody else's story, and I wanted to join that.
We're not as alone as we thought we were in the universe.
Yeah. So anyway, if anybody is interested in hearing what that was all about, you can listen to episode 98. And I missed you, Jerry. It would have been nice to have you there with us, but you were there in spirit. We mentioned you.
Yeah, that's all I needed.
Yeah. All right. So are we ready to take this up a notch? Let's see.
Bam.
Okay. So here we go.
Welcome. We have been expecting you.
All right. We are going down to the lower levels of the SmorgShow Lounge. All right. Are you guys down here with me?
Somebody's down here. Sounds like somebody's got indigestion.
I know. Who's got the bad breath? Okay. Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
This is the Halloween episode. Welcome to it. Hey, it's a SpookFest.
Happy Halloween. Have a good day.
Do you have what are some of your favorite Halloween stories growing up? Do you remember anything?
I don't know if it would be specifically Halloween stories, but I mean, I know, like a while back, I don't know if you specifically did it. I thought you might have done it as one of your radio theater things, but the War of the Worlds one was pretty. And actually, I think that was on Halloween.
Oh yeah,
night.
yeah,
And,
1937.
Right, and that's always been kind of a favorite for me.
Listening to that,
Yeah, it's such, because they do it in a way that sounds like it's real, like it's a real broadcast. It kind of just really takes you in. So that's, I was never one of those persons that liked the really wild, gory slasher movies or anything like
no.
that.
But did you go trick or treating or anything?
Well, I definitely did that, but I never really thought about scary. I don't know if we
Yeah.
ever did scary stories very much.
How about you, Dave?
Well, Halloween really isn't supposed to be about
Scary?
slasher
Oh yeah.
and killing. A lot of people think it's about, they put pictures of people hanging by the neck, and
Oh yeah.
that's not what Halloween is really
No.
meant to be. It's meant to be, it actually has a purpose.
Well, it's actually an old pagan holiday.
It was meant as an open door for your deceased relatives to come
And visit
back
you.
and visit you.
The thinning of the veil. Is
Thank
the thing.
you.
Yeah.
See, what took me 30 seconds to say, Jerry said in about a few words, but that's exactly what it is. That's what the holiday is meant for.
Yeah, it's that that separation between the living and the dead would open up, and there would be you could commune. But I mean, there was also a thing that I think the quote unquote scary part is that even though your spirits of your dead relatives come through, there could also be other spirits that are not so hospitable, and you wanted to keep them at bay.
Right, and a lot of the scary noises and all that were meant to scare away
Them,
those type
right.
of unsavorables
that's the whole
without
thing
bodies.
That's the whole thing of the jack-o'-lantern or that kind of like that scary
Scarecrow.
yeah, all that, because well in Scotland and those areas, those Celtic areas, where it's because Halloween started as a Celtic holiday, they would take old turnips, rutabaga, something like that, and they would carve them out, and they'd put candles and put that kind of stuff, because it wasn't pumpkins, because that only started in America, because we had pumpkins and they didn't have pumpkins.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as memories go, did you finish your thought?
Oh, that's all I have to say.
For some reason, the main memory that's coming back to me is being at Southern Illinois University at Halloween, when they used to really have Halloween there.
Oh yeah, I heard about their.
Everybody used to dress up, and they weren't just scary costumes, witches, ghosts, things like that. People were actually making social protests.
Yeah.
You'd see people being wheeled around like they were maimed soldiers and things like that. I mean, there was really a lot going on, and there were people in the streets, and eventually they just shut all that down.
Wow.
Yeah. You got a little too.
Well, I don't
Too
know.
real.
Yeah.
I really, I don't know the full story. I didn't go to school there, but I went, I think, well, at least once, maybe even twice, to an SIU Halloween, and it was an experience you'll never forget.
Wow.
And there was never there was no violence. No, everybody was having fun, and there were no problems when I was there at all.
Jerry, you told me something on the phone the other day that sparked some memories of me. Something that happened at your house with your dad. Can you set the stage for that story? Was it on Halloween?
I think so. I think.
What happened there?
I don't think some kids are kind of coming over to my house to TP it or something, and my dad was there to greet them. I think I don't know if he was wearing anything or not.
Clothes.
Well, the one time you saw him, he was out doing yard work in his underwear. So I mean, anyway.
Yeah, I had my girlfriend with me, and I was coming to visit you, and your dad's out in his underwear doing gardening or doing something.
Whatever, you're probably fixing the car. Anyway, they came to cause some mischief, and he showed up and came out with his shotgun
Yes.
to greet them.
Well, you know what? You asked me if I was part of that, and on the phone I'm like, no, but man, that story sounds familiar. And I don't know if it was because you told me it before or if I was actually one of those people in the group.
You might have been.
Yeah, something.
If that's the case.
That's the funniest story I've ever heard. Okay.
Shame on you.
Well, I was a different person back then if it was me. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
How about you, Halloween? memories?
Me, I just remember, I do remember going out for trick-or-treating every year. I remember it seemed like we were out much later than we are now. And I don't know if it's just because back then 8 o'clock seemed really late, but I remember going around the neighborhood. It was cold. I used to hate those years where it would be raining and your mom would put like, a coat on you and it covers up your costume.
Your Spider-Man costume?
My Spider-Man costume. How'd you know I went as Spider-Man?
Just a guess.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Which is why you had to wear that raincoat so you didn't catch a cold.
Yeah, it kind of takes the oomph out of the holiday.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember too many any standout moments with Halloween though. I could tell you now. I go out for the evening. Kim and I go to a movie every year now. We just get out of here.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while, but I used to really enjoy answering the doors and handing out the candy. It's fun.
Yeah, I went through that too.
And you can chat with the kids, and sometimes, hey, who are you supposed to be? Because you can't figure it out, and then I'm supposed to be whatever.
Yeah.
And I always try to make sure the kids in the back get some candy, because some kids run up to the front of the door and they're real aggressive,
Yes.
and I learned never to let them just reach into the bowl because they'll just grab
they'll take like
10 of something.
Yeah, right.
So I would distribute equally.
We've been getting teenagers coming into our door. They're not even dressed up as anything.
Give us some candy, man.
So I thought what we'd do tonight is we're going to take turns doing a dramatic reading. And so I thought Allie could kick this off so that we can learn from her technique and delivery. So I'm going to play this first one. This is called Lady in the Veil, and I hope you enjoy it. And this is the SmorgShow podcast, SpookFest 2018.
The Lady in the Veil. He had not expected to meet the woman of his dreams, but there she was, strolling along in the moonlight beside the cemetery. Carlos quickened his pace until he was level with her, hoping for a glimpse of her face under her veil. Carlos made a few remarks about the beautiful night and the lovely weather, anything to keep her talking. She stopped abruptly and turned to face him. He caught a glimpse of dark eyes glinting behind the veil. "What is it you want?" she asked. "A date, señorita. Just a date." Carlos beamed at her. She paused and said, "I do not know. Ask me again in this place at this time tomorrow night, and we shall see." Carlos's heart leapt in his chest. So she was playing hard to get? Well, fair enough. He would see her tomorrow, and then she would fall into his arms. The next day dragged by for the infatuated Carlos, and he had trouble concentrating on his work. But at last he was free and running the few blocks to his home to change into a suitable outfit. He could barely contain himself, and he reached the cemetery a few minutes early. She was not there yet, so Carlos entertained himself by picturing his beautiful bride in their new home. Suddenly she was there in front of him. The moonlight sparkled off her veil. Carlos was enchanted. They talked for hours, standing in front of the graveyard. She was as witty as she was beautiful, and Carlos begged her for a date. "We will go out tomorrow night," she said. "I will send you a letter with the place and time." Carlos kissed her hand and floated away so happy he wanted to sing for joy. Carlos was absolutely useless at work the next day. After work, he rushed home and found a letter in his mailbox. Eagerly, he read it, not pausing to wonder how she knew where he lived. Then he ran next door to show it to Diego, his closest cousin. Diego went pale when he read her signature. Rosa Gonzalez. This must be the same Rosa that died in a car crash last year. Diego tried to warn Carlos, but Carlos was already in love. That night, as Carlos hurried to the cemetery, Diego followed, certain that his cousin was in over his head. Carlos bounded over to Rosa. "At last we go out," he cried to her. "But first, my love, show me your face." At his words, Rosa pulled aside the veil. Back at the gate, Diego gave a gasp of shock, for she had the desiccated face of a skeleton. He was frozen to the spot by the power of the evil specter, unable to warn Carlos. Looking down, Carlos only saw the glamour the ghost was projecting. As the skeleton's withered arms trapped him, the veil on his eyes was lifted, and he realized in one heart-stopping moment the abomination he was kissing. The ground opened up, and with a laugh of triumph, the specter pulled him down and down into her tomb. The earth closed over Carlos and Rosa. Diego, freed from the ghost spell, ran into the cemetery, shouting his cousin's name in terror. But it was too late. Carlos was dead, locked for all time in Rosa's arms.
Wow.
Ooh, scary.
And they lived happily ever after.
Thank you, Allie. That was good. Hey, I forgot to tell you guys, we came up with a recipe for Halloween. You may want to try this. Ever hear of the campfire? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, they were campfire. Campfire s'morgs.
S'morgs?
S'morgs. It is the official s'more of the Smorgasbord radio show. And here's what we did. First of all, there's cinnamon graham crackers, marshmallows, Granny Smith apple slices. But we called it Granny Rose Smith apple slices because you remember Granny Rose. She was a character on our show.
Yes.
Creamy peanut butter and milk chocolate. So, there you go. Oh. Try that this Halloween over the campfire and think of us. The campfire s'morgs.
Sounds good.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. Trying to get into the right mood here. Okay, that cat's a little... Jeez, murdering the cat. Okay, this one is called Amber. Oh, you hear the stories about how dangerous Ouija boards are. But hey, it's just a game. Mary waited until midnight to begin our little game, and the four of us, Sarah, Jesse, me, and Mary, started by asking all sorts of silly questions. It was a strange-looking board covered with letters and symbols. There was a plastic pointer that was supposed to move across the board at the behest of the spirits. The instructions called it a planchette. Around 1:30 in the morning, the planchette suddenly froze in Mary's hand. It wouldn't move, no matter how much we pushed and pulled. Mary turned her frightened blue eyes toward me. "I'm not doing it," she said, lifting her hands. I grabbed the planchette myself and tried to push it around, but it was fixed to the board. Suddenly, a kind of electric shock buzzed through my fingers. I gasped and tried to pull my fingers from the planchette, but they were stuck. Mary and Jesse both tried to pull my fingers away, but nothing helped. The other girls stared with wide, round eyes as the planchette came alive under my fingers, which were still fixed to its surface, and began to move. "Help," the words spelled out under my hand. "Help me. Help me." The planchette kept moving back and forth between the H-E-L-P continuously until Sarah cried out, "Who are you?" "Amber," the board spelled. "My name is Amber. I'm 8 years old." "What's wrong?" Mary asked. Her face was so white all the freckles stood out like darkened age spots. "Water. Danger. Help. Scared." The words spelled out as fast as my hand could move. "Call 911, Mary cried suddenly. "Quick, Amber is in danger." By this time, Sarah was gasping into the phone. Then she hung up the phone. "They wouldn't listen to me," she told us, almost in tears. At that instant, my hand was suddenly free from the planchette. "She's gone," I gasped. "See if you can contact her again," Mary said urgently. "We need to know if she's okay." So I picked up the plastic planchette again. "Amber, are you there?" I asked softly, afraid of what might happen. After a long pause, it moved slowly across the board and spelled out the words, "Too late." And after another long pause, "Water, flood, drowned, Mobile, Alabama." The planchette stopped. I knew that Amber was gone. None of us got much sleep that night, but in the morning we rushed through breakfast and then looked up the Alabama news on the internet. None of us were surprised to read that there'd been flash floods the night before. I read the names of those who had died in the flood, and one of the victims was an 8-year-old girl named Amber.
Sounds like a ghost yodeling.
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock. Trick or treat! Gee, I got a candy bar. Boy, I got 3 cookies. Hey, I got a package of gum. I got a rock. Trick or treat! I got a popcorn ball. I got a fudge bar. I got a pack of gum. I got a rock.
The one that rides the horse.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
From corner to corner I roam the earth.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
Don't let me catch you all by yourself.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
You'll disappear like all the rest.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
I am the noise that woke you up.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
It's my whispers that you heard.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
I am the shadow on your wall.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
I am the creepy crawling night.
I'm the boogie, the boogeyman.
Take off your skin.
Shake the bones.
I am the thing living under your bed.
Who's the boogie? The boogeyman.
Just ask your cat, he said.
All right. Thank you. The Boogeyman. Boogeyman Jam on the SmorgShow podcast. Thanks for joining us. You have joined us in the middle of SpookFest. Actually, you probably didn't join us midway because this isn't radio. Unless you downloaded it and just decided to jump 40 minutes into the show. Wherever we are. All right. I think we've got something here out of the Dropbox. Baba Gonesh has dropped something our way for the special occasion. So we're going to go over to Chennai, India, and then we will be back to do another dramatic reading. And I think Jerry's up next, right?
If you say so.
It doesn't matter. Dave or Jerry, whoever's ready to go next. And we will be back very shortly.
Hello, everybody! This is your loving master guru, Baba Gonesh. And I come to you once again from over 8,500 miles away from the SmorgShow studio in Chennai, India. Here I am conveniently and comfortably seated in my armchair, and I bring you my words of wisdom courtesy of my Dropbox. You know, as I understand it, this show coincides with the American holiday of Halloween. We do not have such a custom here in India. There is no pumpkin carving. There is no trick-or-treating. There is no holiday that is celebrated. But in recent years, I have become more witness to some factions who do dress up in various costumes and go to parties. People don't just come up with anything creative, what they want to dress up as. They typically go as, the devil, a witch, the Joker, Batman, Spider-Man, vampires, and Bob the Builder. The closest thing I can share with you to relate to your holiday is an incident that happened around the turn of the century. The phenomenon known as the Monkey Man. In May of 2001, reports began to circulate in the Indian capital of New Delhi of a strange monkey-like creature that was appearing at night and attacking people. Eyewitness accounts were often inconsistent, but they tended to describe the creature as about 4 feet tall, covered in thick black hair, with a metal helmet, metal claws, glowing red eyes, and 3 buttons on its chest. Others, however, describe the Monkey Man as having a more vulpine snout and being up to 8 feet tall and muscular. It would leap from building to building. Many people reported being scratched, and 3 people even died when they leapt from the tops of the building or fell down stairwells in a panic because what they thought was the attacker. At one point, exasperated police even issued artists' impression drawings in an attempt to catch the creature. And to this day, no Monkey Man has ever been caught. The entire incident has been described as an Indian example of mass hysteria. Okay, well, enough about that. The main feature of the day is now. It is time for Baba News. Oh yes, I have not been your correspondent in many, many years on this network, but I have a story to share today. Rajasthan High Court judge on Wednesday stirred a hornet's nest when he suggested that the cow should be made the national animal and slaughter of a cow should warrant the death penalty. It is the voice of my soul, your soul, everybody's soul. Law has stemmed from Dharma and not vice versa, Justice Mahesh Chand Sharma told a local news channel. When a reporter asked him for the rationale behind declaring cow slaughter a heinous crime, he replied, "There cannot be a more heinous crime than this. Cow is like mother. She saves people from different diseases." Not only did the judgment cause a controversy, but Justice Sharma's heartfelt statement as to the benefits of cow dung and cow urine listed in the official judgment dated May 31st, 2018 and uploaded on Rajasthan High Court's official website added a whole lot of hilarity to the subject. Here are just a few gems. 33 crore gods and goddesses reside inside the cow, and that's why a cow is considered Vishva Mata, or world's mother. The cow appeared on earth along with goddess Lakshmi during the churning of ocean in Hindu mythology. Cow is the only animal which inhales as well as exhales oxygen. The cow's body is a hospital in itself. A German scientist has found out that cow has cosmic energy between its horns. He then went on to list the benefits of cow dung and cow urine. First, gomutra, or cow urine, can get rid of any bad bacteria as well as diseases. Cow urine, when consumed by humans, cleans our liver and improves immunity. It is filled with nutrients. It stops people from aging. It is good for the heart as well as the brain. The river Ganga resides in cow urine, and thus it has the power to absolve one of all sins. Cow's milk is equivalent to Amrit. That is the potion that makes one immortal. A Russian scientist has found out that if cow dung is slathered all around a house, it can protect that person from radioactive waves. And finally, cow dung can help with the waste management in big cities, although he did not elaborate on how that would work. And that is all I have for Baba News. Oh, I have a very special announcement. I will be back in the United States in time for episode 100. Yes, your very own Baba will be back in the Chicago metropolitan area, and I will be there for episode 100 in person. Oh, I cannot wait to see all of you again very soon. So, I will be packing my bag soon. In the meantime, I have a birthday to celebrate next week. So, there's that. And I'd like to say happy birthday to Chris, who I understand had a birthday last week. Oh, happy birthday. And do not worry about getting older. Just think of this as what Baba has always thought. Age is not important unless you are a cheese. Thank you so very much. I am Baba Gonesh.
And now you know why we call the show the Smorgasbord Show. It's a variety of everything.
Baba sounds good.
He does. He sounds very good for 76.
You know, that thing that he mentioned in the news story, if the people in Japan had known about that when the Fukushima plant, if they just smeared their houses with cow dung,
The radioactive?
they would have bounced right off. You see, they didn't have that. They didn't have that Vedic knowledge.
Well, that study hadn't come out yet, so.
That's right.
Okay. I thought it was ancient wisdom, but okay, you're right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Baba. That was exciting. Happy birthday, Baba.
Happy
Yes,
birthday.
many returns.
I think he is over in, well, he's been in India since we disbanded the show many years ago. And
Right.
he wanted to make sure we were consistently producing them again before coming back. Mm-hmm. I think he wants to be there for
100.
Diwali.
Oh, Diwali,
Sorry.
Diwali.
I think that starts next week. The Festival of Lights.
And by the way, a happy on-the-air birthday to you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Oh yeah. Happy birthday and many, many, many more.
That's right. Thank you. Yep, 52.
You're a B-52.
Yeah. Okay, so who wants to go next?
Dave, would you like me to go next?
Go ahead.
This one is called Hatchet Man. There were warnings all over the campus about a hatchet man who had supposedly abused and killed a woman in Bloomington. All the girls were warned to walk in pairs and stay in brightly lit areas if they had to go out at night. The sophomore and her roommate were staying in the empty dorm over Thanksgiving break, since both their families were out of the country. They'd grown very bored as day followed boring day and night followed boring night. Tired of staying inside every night for fear of the hatchet man, her roommate suggested that they have dinner at the local bar, and the sophomore agreed. The two women had lingered longer than anticipated, and it was almost midnight when the sophomore, more than a little drunk, decided to walk back to the dorm. Her roommate was busy flirting with the bartender, so she headed into the dark, silent streets alone. The sophomore had forgotten all about the hatchet man warnings. It wasn't until she took a shortcut through a dark, creepy alley that she remembered that there was a desperate murderer on the loose. The sophomore shivered, feeling suddenly sober and very much alone. She felt as if hostile eyes were peering out at her from every menacing shadow and darkened doorway. She quickened her pace. Was that heavy breathing she heard behind her? Were those footsteps walking in time with her own? The sophomore broke into a run, heart pounding fiercely, sure that someone was following her. She darted onto the college campus, zigzagged through the buildings, and flung herself, panting, into the dorm. She pounded up 3 flights of stairs, down the hall, and slammed into her room, locking the door behind her. It was only then, leaning against the door with her heart racing, that she started to feel foolish. There was no sound from the hallway, no footsteps, no heavy breathing, no hatchet breaking through the wood of the door. She'd been a fool. The sophomore staggered into the bathroom to wash up for the night, leaving the door locked behind her. She kept glancing in the mirror to make sure that everything was secure. The scene in the mirror was normal, and there was no sound in the empty dormitory. Everything was just fine, she told herself. Then she remembered that her roommate was still at the bar. She didn't want her roommate to walk alone. So she called the bar and asked the manager if he would arrange for her roommate to be brought home in a taxi. The music in the background was loud, and she wasn't sure if the manager understood her request. Well, at least she had tried. The sophomore curled up in bed with the reading lamp on, determined to wait up for her roommate. But the combination of heavy drinking and her earlier fright sent her into a deep, deep sleep, almost at once. She did not awaken until the sun came pouring in the window early the next morning. She woke up with a hangover and rolled over, trying not to be sick in the bed. Then she looked across the room and realized that her roommate wasn't in her bed and on the far wall. In fact, it looked as if her bed had not been slept in at all. She rolled to her feet, head pounding with dread. Maybe her roommate had spent the night in the lobby. Her roommate had done this once before when out partying until the wee hours of the morning. She said that it was too much trouble to climb the 3 flights of stairs. With trembling hands, the sophomore unlocked the door and wrenched it open in search of her roommate. The unmistakable, faintly metallic scent of blood smashed into her nostrils as the door swung open. That was her only warning before she saw with her shocked eyes the blood splattered all over the walls and floor of the third-floor hallway. She screamed in terror, leaping backward away from the partially decapitated body of her roommate, which lay dead at her feet. Her throat was slit from end to end, and blood poured under her dead body. The nails of her outstretched hand were torn and splintered where they had scratched desperately at the wooden door. A black shadow laid across her roommate's body. She looked up in a daze, her gaze following the black shadow to its source. Embedded in the window frame near the entrance to the staircase was a blood-stained hatchet, outlined in the light of the rising sun.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Philip.
Philip who?
Fill up my belly with candy till I pop.
I don't know which was scary. I think that was pretty scary right there. Sorry, I kind of fumbled a few places, but I think I got the gist of it.
You got through it okay.
Yeah, there you go.
How's Philip's jail time going?
You know, I think he got 6 months. I hope he gets out in time for our 100th.
Yeah, I hope so.
I wanted to have him back here.
I heard he's working on some new stuff.
Yeah,
new
I heard
material.
that. I'm sure you're most creative when you're in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philip was, for those of you who've not been following the show for a while, Philip was found on a children's playground selling candy or something like that. And there's a misunderstanding, as I understand it. That's what his attorney said. But anyway, he's 6 months away. I don't have anything else. I guess we go to the final one here with Dave.
Okay. This is going to be really scary because I don't have my reading glasses on. This is going to be terrifying. Okay, this is called Dramatic Reading number 4. No, I'm kidding. It's called No Trespassing. A Texas scary story. Peggy and her boyfriend Tommy were driving down a lonely stretch of highway at dusk when a thunderstorm came crashing down on them. Tommy slowed the car and they crept their way past a formidable abandoned house. Plastered all over the fences and trees were no trespassing signs. A mile past the house, the car hydroplaned. Peggy screamed as the car slid off the road, plunging down into a gully. The car slammed into a large boulder, throwing Peggy violently into the door before it came to a rest under a pecan tree. Her head banged against the window, and a stabbing pain shot through her shoulder and arm. Tommy turned to her. "Are you all right? You're bleeding." "Arm, shoulder, feel bad," Peggy managed to gasp. Tommy glanced cautiously at her right arm. "I think your arm is broken," he said, and he tore a strip off of his shirt and pressed it onto her head. "I'm going to call for help," he said, when it became obvious that the bleeding was not going to stop right away, but neither of them had their cell phones. "That house we just passed will have a phone I can use," Tommy said. Peggy's eyes popped wide. Despite her pain, she remembered the creepy abandoned house. "Stay here. A car will come." "I can't stay, Peggy," Tommy said. "It could take hours for another car to come, and you're losing too much blood." He tore another strip of his shirt and placed it gently on the cut on her head. Then he went out and retrieved a couple of blankets from the trunk to cover her with. "I'll be back as soon as I can." He raced out into the storm, shutting the dented door behind him. Peggy drifted in a kind of daze. Something at the back of her mind was making her uneasy. She slid down onto the floor and put her head on the seat, completely covering herself with the blankets, head and all. Feeling safer, she allowed the weariness caused by the wounds to take over and fell asleep. Peggy wasn't sure what woke her. Had a beam of light shone briefly through the blanket? Did she hear someone curse outside? She strained eyes and ears, but heard nothing save the soft thudding of the rain, and no light shone through the blanket now. If Tommy had arrived with the rescue squad, there surely would be noise and light, and many voices, but she heard nothing, save the swish of the rain and occasional thumping noise, which she put down to the rubbing of the branches on the pecan tree in the wind. The sound should have been comforting, but it was not. Goosebumps crawled across her arms, even the broken one, and she almost ceased breathing for some time as some deep part of her inner mind instructed her to freeze and not make a sound. She did not know how long fear kept her immobile, but suddenly the raw terror ceased, replaced by cold shivers of apprehension and a sick coil in her stomach that had nothing to do with her injuries. Something terrible had happened, she thought warily, fear adding yet more fatigue to her already wounded body. Then she scolded herself for a ninny. It was just her sore head making her imagine things. Somewhat comforted by this thought, she dozed again, only vaguely aware of a new sound that had not been there before, a soft, thud-thud sound, as of something gently tapping the roof. Thud. Thud. Pattering of the rain. Thud. Thud. Silence. Sometimes she would almost waken and listen to it in a puzzled manner. Thud. Thud. Patter of rain. Thud. Thud. Had a bunch of dislodged from the tree? Had a branch dislodged from the tree. Peggy wasn't sure how long she'd been unconscious when she was awakened by a bright light blazing through the window of the car and the sound of male voices exclaiming in horror. A door was wrenched open and someone crawled inside. She lifted her head and looked up at the young state policeman. "Miss, are you all right?" "I don't hear the wind anymore," he asked, and then she turned over his shoulder to call for help. Peggy told the officers her story and begged them to look for Tommy. They deftly avoided answering her and instead called the paramedics. As the paramedics carried her carefully up the slope of the incline, Peggy looked back at the car and saw a grotesque figure hanging from the branch of the pecan tree. For a moment, her brain couldn't decipher what she was seeing in the bright lights of the police car parked at the side of the road. Then she heard a thud, thud sound as the foot of the figure scraped the top of the totaled car, and she started screaming over and over in horror. One of the police officers hastened to block her view, and a paramedic fumbled for some Valium to give her, as her mind finally registered what she had seen. Tommy's mangled dead body was hanging from the pecan tree just above the car, and nailed to the center of his chest was a no trespassing sign.
Wow. That is just chilling.
The end.
Hello, everybody! This is Baba Gonesh, and it is time to break the tension of this program with a little bit of humor. I have been living in this country for a little over 30 years, and I have been observing this Halloween custom for many years. And I've written my own jokes based on my observations of this culture. and of my favorite vampire movies. Let's try this. Why did Dracula go to the dentist? He had a fang ache. What is it called when a vampire has trouble with his house? A grave problem. How can you tell when a vampire has been in a bakery? Because all of the jelly has been sucked out of the jelly donuts. What do you call a little monster's parents? Mummy and Daddy. What do Italians eat on Halloween? Fettuccine Alfredo. Which building does Dracula visit in New York City? The Vampire State Building, of course. Where do most werewolves live? In Hollywood, California. Where do most goblins live? In North and South Carolina. What can't you give the headless horseman? A headache, of course. What kind of gum do ghosts chew? Boo-boo gum. And my last joke for the day is, what does a monster wear to parties? A bow tie. That is all I have for Baba Joke. Have a good Halloween. Thank you very much.
Okay. That one is from the vault from many years ago.
Those are some truly scary jokes.
Well, we're kind of wrapping up. We're kind of winding down here. How about one more story? This one is Allie. I had Allie do two of them. I'm going to play one more, and then we can come back and close this segment out, and then we're going to go into our final bit with the interview with Sandy Rizzo. But let's turn this over to Allie, and we'll be back to wrap things up.
Don't turn on the light. She commandeered the room in the basement of her dorm as soon as she realized she would have to pull an all-nighter in order to prepare for tomorrow's final exam. Her roommate Jenna liked to go to bed early, so she packed up everything she thought she would need and went downstairs to study, and study, and study some more. It was 2:00 when she realized that she had left one of the textbooks upstairs on her bed. With a dramatic sigh, she rose and climbed the stairs slowly to her third-floor dorm room. The lights were dim in the long hallway, and the old boards creaked under her weary tread. She reached her room and turned the handle as softly as she could, pushing the door open just enough to slip inside so that the hall lights wouldn't wake her roommate. The room was filled with a strange metallic smell. She frowned a bit, her arms breaking out into chills. There was a strange feeling of malice in the room, as if a malevolent gaze were fixed upon her. It was a mind trick. The all-nighters was catching up with her. She could hear Jenna breathing on the far side of the room, a heavy sound, almost as if she had been running. Jenna must have picked up a cold during the last tense week before finals. She crept along the wall until she reached her bed, groping among the covers for the stray history textbook. In the silence, she could hear a steady drip, drip, drip sound. She sighed silently. Facilities would have to come fix the sink in the bathroom, again. Her fingers closed on the textbook. She picked it up softly and withdrew from the room as silently as she could. Relieved to be out of the room, she hurried back downstairs, collapsed into an overstuffed chair, and studied until 6 o'clock. She finally decided that enough was enough. If she slipped upstairs now, she could get a couple of hours' sleep before her 9 o'clock exam. The first of the sun's rays were beaming through the windows as she slowly slid the door open, hoping not to awaken Jenna. Her nose was met by an earthy metallic smell a second before her eyes registered the scene in her dorm room. Jenna was spread-eagled on top of her bed against the far wall, her throat cut from ear to ear, and her nightdress stained with blood. 2 drops of blood fell from the saturated blanket with a drip, drip, drip noise that sounded like a leaky faucet. Scream after scream poured from her mouth, but she couldn't stop herself any more than she could cease wringing her hands. All along the hallway, doors slammed and footsteps came running down the passage. Within moments, other students had gathered in her doorway, and one of her friends gripped her arm with a shaking hand and pointed a trembling finger towards the wall. Her eyes widened in shock at what she saw. Then she fainted into her friend's arms. On the wall, above her bed, written in her roommate's blood, were the words, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?"
Thank you, Allie. And that concludes our dramatic readings for SmorgShow SpookFest 2018.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks for the nightmares tonight.
Hey, no problem. Well, this was fun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition back to our normal SmorgShow studio so that we can close out the segment. But so I need to do something that's going to transition us a little bit. So we'll just play this shower scene, and we'll be right back.
Who's this?
David Alum from Oak Brook.
You know what you just won?
No, tell me.
You just won $1.
$1?
$1? Let's hear it.
United States currency?
$1.
Not 50 cents, not 35 cents, but $1?
That's right.
Ah!
All right.
Oh, yes.
To do with as
Party.
What you gonna do with the money?
Oh, my God. I have 1,000 million things thinking right now. I don't know. I am going to call my sister in Albuquerque and tell her I won.
All right, you do that.
It is worth a long-distance phone call.
That's right, and you can help. The dollar will help you.
This is incredible. I don't want anything in my life but $1.
Do you have a WDGC teacher card?
I do.
Then you want an extra penny.
Another penny?
Yeah.
Ah! Can pay for the tax.
What's your favorite radio station?
DGC.
All right. WDGC-FM giving away $1. Keep it tuned to 88.3 FM to know what 2 groups will be played back-to-back. When you hear the second begin, be the first to call us back and win $1.
Dollar. Ooh, we're still in the lair.
Yeah. It's cold in here.
How's that?
More homey.
All right.
You know, it's Halloween. Are we going to do the devil sound effect or no? Are we,
The what?
the devil sound on the mics. Do you have that?
Oh, no. You know, I still haven't read all the instructions of this
okay.
this sound effects unit. There's a book here it's got like 1,000 different variations,
Okay,
and
that's all right.
I should have looked into that.
I shouldn't just throw that at you. Like
yeah, well,
Well, Dave, I mean, you already got a lot of bass in your voice. You could probably snap and go into that devil.
Yeah, I should have played around with that a little bit, the vocoder. Yeah. Okay, well, that's SmorgShow SpookFest 18 coming to a close. Hope you can get some sleep tonight, little kitties. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go into our final segment here. It's another hour, roughly 45 minutes or so, with Sandy Rizzo from WDGC class of 1978. But what I thought I would do just to kind of set the mood here is this is a snippet. Oh, I should have gotten permission for this. I didn't ask her for permission. Do you think she'd give us a permission? Probably. I would think so, right?
I don't know.
I would think so. It's public domain, isn't it?
If it's a problem, cut it out before you host it, I guess.
Sandy, if you don't want us to have this on the show, tell us and we'll edit it out of the production. But, well, yeah. This is just a couple minutes from the show that she broadcast from the station last week. This is just her introduction segment so that you can get a sense for who she is. The audio quality is not the best because there was some issues with recording it, but I tried to take some of the hum out. So here we go. We're going to play this and we're going to come back and we'll go into the interview.
Hello, it's about 10 minutes after 2 o'clock in Downers Grove. I'm Sandy Rizzo, and I want to welcome you to this hour. I know Chris and Dave, who were on last hour, did quite an amazing job, and they did a lot of talking. So I kind of felt good about that because I plan to do a little bit of talking myself, just to tell you a little bit about WDGC, my time here, and I'm in town because it is also my 40th high school reunion, which is this evening. But one of the most important things to me about high school was WDGC, and I'm so happy to be part of this event. I flew here from my home in Arizona to share a few anecdotes and share music and, just kind of be a part of it. And I'm really excited and grateful that they've entrusted this station to us so that we could get in there and be DJs again, at least for another hour. I was born and raised in Downers Grove, a house on Prospect Avenue. I had, the average experience that I think a lot of people did here. I played neighborhood baseball games at Washington School, went to the 4th of July fireworks, hated winter, but a big part of my life was music. It consumed myself and my siblings, especially my sisters, from a very young age. And we were near Chicago, as we are, and just to be near that much air talent, hear the amazing talent, see the way they did things, have exposure to musicians who I loved, really helped shape who I am, not to mention all the amazing music that had come out during my youth. When I was young, I didn't know that a girl or a woman could be on the air. And while Chicago had amazing air talent when I was a kid, that typically did not include women. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. I researched it later when I was in college for my thesis. But it really wasn't until about WSDM, the station with the girls, that I found out that women could be on the air. But I had wanted to be even before that. And so you can just imagine how exciting it was to know that there was a radio station that I could get into and learn. I remember being a kid. Larry's Books and Gifts was a store that is where the Capri is now on Main, just south of the train. And it was Christmas time, and I was just a little kid, and someone who I think I now know interviewed me, and I think the bug kind of grew from there. I remember seeing WDGC jocks broadcasting from store windows on downtown Main Street, and it was all very exciting to me. And I just knew when I listened to WCFL and WLS that I wanted to be a part of it. I won contests. I listened to every end of the year countdown. I loved Larry Lujak. I grew more and more familiar and aware of things and really wanted to be a part of this whole enterprise. So WDGC came along, and here I am. I'm a female, and I want to be on the radio, like Joni Mitchell.
You're listening to the SmorgShow podcast.
All right. Well, this is the first time in a very long time that we're doing one of these. We're doing a Skype call with Sandy Rizzo. Hi, Sandy.
Hey, how you doing?
We're doing great.
Hi, Sandy. This is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
And Jerry is here, too.
Hey, Sandy.
Hey, Jerry.
So Sandy is an alum from the class of 78. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Downers Grove North High School, which is where Dave and I attended. Jerry's actually from Downers Grove South, but he obviously shared the same airwaves. Tuesday, Thursday, and I don't know. That was pretty much it, right?
This is over 30 years ago. I'm not going to remember.
No, I think we alternated the signal for the studio over south and north.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I know we had a studio and we had, because the transmitter and the main studio was over at north. I mean, you got the lion's share of the airwaves. So
anyway, Sandy, we met Sandy for the first time at the 50th anniversary reunion.
That's right.
Last month. And I had heard so much about Sandy just from the Facebook page, first of all, that WDGC set up for the alumni, anybody who's on the station, and seeing Sandy's post and the pictures from back then. And I was excited to hear that Sandy was going to be at the reunion. So we got a chance to meet, and Sandy followed our show. So Dave and I had from 1 to 2, and then Sandy was from 2 to 3.
Right.
And I finally got a chance to hear your show, Sandy, this morning over coffee, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed hearing your stories.
Thank you so much. I as I said on that show, I thank you guys for doing so much talking, because I was going to feel guilty. I knew I was going to be sharing memories and, kind of being long-winded a little bit and playing music too. But, that was the whole purpose, I think, was just to be there and remember the old days.
Yeah, because what point would it have served for you to come all the way from Arizona just to play, Led Zeppelin tracks for an hour and
and give out the phone number a couple times?
Yeah.
So, exactly. And I couldn't even remember the phone number. I was impressed that you guys could remember it.
Well, it changed.
852-0404. Classic.
Was it that number when you were there?
It was. Yeah.
So
once you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. That's it.
It's different now. I don't know what it is now, but
it is different.
So we're about, I guess we're about 5 or 6 years younger, given that Dave graduated in 83, I graduated in 84. Jerry's also 83. You're 78. So we have a great interest, being the product of the 80s, we have a great interest in hearing some stories about what happened in the 1970s at the radio station.
Oh, very cool. Well, to set the scene, I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I was a kiddo, just a youngster, listening probably from the very beginning, because I probably, like yourselves, was a radio geek.
Oh, yeah.
Just nuts about radio. I would sit there at home with a little tape recorder, and I would have the microphone. Remember, the microphone would be this wired little piece of junk plastic, and you'd sit there with this, cassette deck. And when, I'd turn on WLS or WCFL, and then when they played the song, I'd move the mic to the song, and then when the song was done, I'd throw it to myself. And here I was, maybe 10, 9, 8. I don't know how old. You've done it? You've been there?
Oh, that's exactly how I got my start.
Imaginary radio shows at home. Absolutely.
I mean,
definitely.
I used to talk into a soup strainer.
Yeah.
So I would listen to WDGC when I went to downtown Downers Grove, and I saw in Anderson's bookshop or in Larry's Books and Gifts or all these different stores where the radio station would appear. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, because I was just nuts about radio anyway. And here they were, and our high school is going to have a radio station. Oh my gosh, this was the moon to me. This was like getting to the moon. It was incredible. So when I started high school, I used to listen all the time and call. I was a regular caller. I probably remembered that phone number. If they had speed dial back then, I probably had it, but they didn't. And so I was a big fan. And then when I got to North, the class was filled. I couldn't take the class my first
I had never heard of that happening, because I just signed up for it and got it. I didn't even know about that.
So there must have been a lot of demand to be on the radio back then.
There really was, because, it was a going thing. It had been, it started on the air in 68. And there were, people I knew and listened to, didn't know them personally, but listened to them. And so by the time I got there, it was just very busy, but that was cool. I did a lot of other things at North. And then when my turn came, wow, it was still in the portable classroom. And I actually have to ask you guys a couple of questions about the station when you were there, but it was in the portable. It had these big doors, and I can't remember if Fred would give us a key or if I'm pretty sure that was the deal. Cause I mean, again, it was before digital stuff. So you had to probably use a real key to get in the building. And once you got in, the first room was, the teletypes, chunk.
Wow.
Right there. And if you went left, you went to the radio section. And if you went right, you went to the television and the classroom And had you guys ever been in the portable before?
Well, yeah, that's where I had my classes.
Oh, they actually had the classroom in there?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I was the first year that we were not in the portable classroom, but my first day of high school, I wanted a tour of the radio station. So they took us through, maybe it was Radio 1. During the Radio 1 class, they took us on a tour of the station, and I actually got to go inside the portable classroom, and we were all standing there watching whoever was on air at the time, and they said, who wants to, announce the next song? And I raised my hand. And so I was actually on the air for, 15 seconds in the portable classroom.
Can I do
Awesome.
But then we moved over to the school, the location where we had our, reunion.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the portable, it had swatches of carpet, all different colors all over the walls.
Right.
And I remember that very well. It had a counter that, people would sit on. And, a first board was a Gates Yard board. And then the second board was the one that you guys inherited.
The Sparta AS40B.
There you go. And we had
Talk about geeks.
We had a Sparta remote unit. And we had, obviously, I think the thing that was the coolest about radio back then was how tangible it was. Because, I mean, I stayed in the business till 1996. And, things went digital at my very last, two stations from my second to last and last station. Things were digital. So I learned digital editing and everything like that. But there was nothing like that hands-on, you pick up a record and you flip it and you cue it up with that needle, and just that feeling of it all being very, very real. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Something was lost going digital, but we also gained some things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's easier.
Because you wouldn't be doing what you're doing without,
Right.
Digital.
But I see some records sitting there.
Oh, yeah. You got to...
by the way, Sandy, the Rizzo rule is still in effect at WDGC.
You wanted to explain that? Because we heard her show, but nobody else had heard it.
I know, it's an inside joke.
The Rizzo rule. Tell us about that, Sandy.
Hello?
Did we lose Sandy?
You used to call the radio station and win contests, right?
Hold on a second.
Yes. There was I don't know if you can hear me. I'm getting a note that I have a poor connection.
No, you're sounding good
we
now.
hear you.
We lost you for a second there, but you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the Rizzo rule, there was a DJ, a high school DJ from South. So maybe, Jerry, you know him. Mike Hartman. Did you ever know or hear of Mike Hartman?
Nope.
No. He was good. And he did this thing called the You Name It game. 20 bits and pieces of 20 different songs, be the first one to call to identify all of these songs, and it'd be just a blip, a little guitar strum or a couple of seconds of singing or whatever. And I have two sisters and a brother, but my sisters and I, oh my gosh, we were ninjas. We were ninjas. We would sit there and we would identify everything, and we up and we would win. Every single time. And they got so sick of winning. They instituted, as Dave said, the Rizzo rule. So yeah, if it's still in effect, that's we did all right.
I mean, the only equivalent thing I can relate to is back in the late 70s, probably about the same time, I was trying to get on John Landecker Boogie Check. Every single night I would try to get in. I think I tallied up once 35, 36 times. And I think after a while, they start to recognize your voice, even though every kid that's 10 years old is pretty much sounds the
Sounds
same.
about the same.
Yeah. But
Because your voice
you
hasn't
guys
changed
sound
yet.
better, I'm sure. Listen to those radio voices. I love it. I thought your show that you did for the reunion was so good. I laughed out
Thanks.
loud.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed listening to your show very, very much.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you very much. Well, Dave and I, when I started this podcast about 8 years ago with my daughter, she was about 11 years old, and we were just we were looking for something to do one Saturday afternoon, and I went down to my crawl space and pulled out old Radio Shack microphones and my disco mixer. And we just started doing some recordings. I said, hey, let's make a podcast out of this. And I put it online on iTunes. And then we did it another week and another week. And before you know it, we have this show going. And then Dave and I split up for a little while. And I found Dave probably about a year into this and had Dave out to the studio. And we've just been doing this since then, off and on. So when we actually did this show back at DGC, we had already been kind of at it again for a while. It wasn't
right. Those muscles have been exercised
nice.
for the last couple of years or so.
Yeah.
Well, I had asked a friend of mine. His name is Stuart Jacobson. He was in my class, and we used to do shows together. And I did shows with someone named Brian Reed and Ben Eaton and Tim Cawley. And I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of their names. I remember one day in the old studio, something was on. At DGC, part of the time you did things and part of the time you played things or aired, the city council meeting or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember he and I, this is a funny and almost embarrassing tale. He and I were in the teletype room, and he was a burnout. He was stoned all the time, and I was not. I just, people thought I was, but I wasn't. And I was asking him all kinds of questions about, so why do you do drugs and where do you get your drugs? It was more of like an investigative type of thing. Anyway, it was silly, but there were many wonderful times in the studio, and probably my most favorite, which predates you guys again, was in 79 in the summer, because that summer Fred let me return. I'd already completed a year of college, but he let me come in, and I did Wednesday and Friday nights. And my younger sister Mary, who I think Dave, I used to work with Mary.
Mary was a huge influence on me musically. She was a super nice person. And she also painted the door.
She did.
On the portable studio.
Oh, wow.
She's
portable
very
classroom.
artistic.
Yes. Yeah.
She's an
Mary was
art
great.
restorer right now, by the way.
She's where?
She's an art restorer who lives in Italy.
Art restorer. Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
she lives in Italy and she restores artworks. But she was very creative. But she would join me in the studio, and we tried that summer to make it sound so professional. We just wanted to be like you'd tune into Chicago, only it would be coming out of Downers Grove. We wanted it to sound like we were legit. You know what I mean? And I think what was interesting about the reunion was that a lot of the people we met took it seriously. Mm-hmm. For whatever, I don't mean they always were serious. You guys evidently had a blast, and I had fun, but what we did was we took it like it wasn't just a blow off easy A class, or something that we just did for kicks. We did it because we loved it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
right.
for sure.
Right. Some people just did it as a pastime. I'm just got a show. I'm going to play some records, maybe meet some girls over the phone. We actually did a show. We did the prep. I mean, I'd spent all of my study hall hours preparing for the Saturday night show.
Or being in the station. That was a great way to get out of study hall.
That's right.
If you worked in radio.
Yes. Yeah, you were able to go there instead of study hall. So I didn't do a lot of studying in high school, unfortunately.
Well, it was my highlight. It was the highlight of my week. It was the highlight of my high school years. And there were many, but I think, and that's why at the reunion, meeting all these people, meeting former students, I wasn't at the 2 years ago celebration where you guys honored Fred with a plaque, Fred Moore, our radio teacher, but just meeting him and talking to him again and talking to everybody and people who inspired me, and then, being on the air again, which that was the first time I was on the air at DGC as much as possible, 4 years actually, just not my freshman year, but again in the summer after. And then, I was on the air in Illinois for quite some time. I was trying to break into Chicago. I did intern at WXRT and WMET, and I wanted to tell you a funny story about XRT just to show you how tangible, when I say that radio was tangible then, I worked in the music programming department as an intern, and there was a DJ named Bob Gelms.
Yeah.
And every day, do you remember Bob Gelms?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know him personally. I interned at the Score on the other side of the building.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was cool. This was through Loyola University. They had internships, and I would get in there. It wasn't every day. It was maybe a couple days a week. And Gelms, the first thing he would do was give me 35 cents to run across the street to the Greek restaurant to buy him a soda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I would do that.
Yeah.
And then I would do my shift. I would pick out all the featured artists, for the week. So if it was Eric Clapton, I would go in that record library and I would find any possible thing related to Eric Clapton. So anyway, the other thing I would do was report to the trade papers how the different tracks we were playing and what was the most played. I would do all the stats. And one day I went in there and I had to write something on a paper, and I accidentally tapped the on-off button for the turntable, and I turned his record off while he was playing on the air.
Great.
And he turned to me. He turned it on again, and then he said, "Do you realize that WXRT has X thousands of listeners, and everywhere where WXRT was on." Just have to turn off my phone there. Everywhere where XRT was on, that record stopped. And I said, "What power?" But I was only kidding, because I felt horrible.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I felt so bad.
Course.
But that's the kind of the thing where it was just a real touchy-feely, thing. And then when you went on in radio, I mean, sure, you made tons of mistakes at WDGC. It was a training ground for us all.
Right.
Yes, it was.
It was expected. But hold on. Silly phone.
We'll fix it in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was expected. And, later on, I remember the point in my career, and I don't know if either of you, did any of you three continue on after WDGC?
Dave did.
I did.
I bailed when I got to college radio, and I did one show. Actually, Kirk Moore was the general manager
yes,
at
Kirk.
And I thought,
videographied my wedding.
Oh, okay. I did one show, and then they were starting to get down on me for talking too much. I said, you know what? I don't need this anymore.
Man, that's who I am.
Yes. I said, this is probably how it's going to be in the real world. I should probably change my major. And so now,
what'd you change it to?
Marketing.
Oh, nice.
I thought I was going to get into the business end of radio, but that never worked out. I just ended up getting into market research. But
well, nowadays, I don't know. I think that we were very, very lucky. We were lucky to have a radio station that could be our lab.
Yeah.
Our learning lab, and a place to just develop and have fun.
And you felt like you belonged somewhere.
Yeah. And I did the announcements when I was a senior, and I would always plug my show. Don't forget, listen, listen tonight. Sure. I had the Friday nights. But it was such a golden opportunity, because I can tell you for a fact that as you move on in your career in radio, you don't get that kind of control,
right,
or autonomy. Mm-hmm. It's gone. You're playing off of a music log. I know, because again, I got hotlined once by my program director because someone made a request, and I was on very late at night, and I personally made a judgment call that this song fit the format, but my PD begged to differ. So I was on a little mini probation, but it all worked out. Everything was actually quite awesome, but Downers Grove and WDGC was just magical. Just the greatest way to start.
I do have a question for you, since my perspective is obviously from about 1980 forward. So I know how it was when I was there, and I know sort of what happened after us. And I think it pretty much completely changed the year after we left, because I think it became all automated. There was an adult supervisor there. They really stifled any kind of creativity out of the bunch now. And today you tune it in, and it's really just music. There's really no personality.
It's just dead air now.
It's dead air.
No, DGC is hardly on anymore.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because they're hiring a supervisor. They need to. We used to go on unsupervised. There didn't have to be a faculty member.
Yeah.
Same.
We were on
But
till
now
midnight.
you do. There has to be a faculty member.
For real?
Yes, because DGC is just off the air most of the time now.
So
I wonder why that is.
They're hiring. There's an ad out. They're hiring somebody to work.
Hey, there you go.
It's a
There's a
full-time
job for you.
There you go,
gig
Dan.
during the school year. They need somebody to supervise the kids, and then they can be on the air again. Otherwise, it's only on during school hours.
You
That's
should
it.
do that. You're only a mile away.
You should.
Hey,
You could just come down there in the middle of the night, and like Fred did with us. No, so back to my question for you, Sandy. I'd like to know how was it during your time as far as the ability to be creative? Was there anybody who did something more than just play records?
Honestly, I will say no, but there was some latitude in the way that we played our records. I don't think, like what you guys did with the more talking and bits and, really kind of almost at the cutting edge of the beginning of, the Howard Sterns and the, all of these different people that changed the paradigm. But back when I was there, people would do contests. They did exciting things. I mean, I was surprised to find out that they went, a couple people, to a moon launch. They went to Florida, to Cape Canaveral to see.
Oh, at 69?
Yeah, they covered. I'm not sure if it was that one, but it was one of the Apollos, and they there were exciting things happening. I think Fred was very invested, and I'm not saying that John Waite isn't, because he clearly is, and he's clearly going to be working on. Apparently, it sounds like he's getting some go-ahead to make some improvements.
Yes.
In the station.
I think they're moving the whole station over to where the gym used to be, right next door.
And they got some
so
funding.
It's going to move again?
Yeah, they're going to move it. They're going to break down that wall, and
yeah,
they got all new equipment will be coming in there, which will be great. I just hope that there's enough interest, because it seems
I do
like
too, but maybe there will be. Maybe with the new equipment and the new person hired, and fostering people. Because I remember when Fred, I was maybe 3 years into my career, and Fred was getting a group of us who had continued in broadcasting to come back and do like a whole day conference, like a little workshop for the students, and tell them all about radio and what it takes and what it's like and the whole deal. So I went. I was more than happy to participate. And it could be this class, it could be the time of day. Maybe they had just eaten lunch and they were sleepy, but oh my gosh, these kids could not have been less interested. And
wow.
I don't understand. I was trying everything. I'm a trainer, and I'm a librarian, and I think the radio background helped me in my other career too. But I couldn't get these kids to have light in their eyes. I didn't know what the heck. And I think I don't know, if you can figure out what it takes, then let me know, because I think it's
is it because
a pity
people
to
are
have a facility like that and not make the most of it.
I'm just wondering, with the cell phones and the texting, are people just losing interest in having a conversation? And talking to one another?
I also think it's part of that, but it's also, anybody can be a star now. You can have your own YouTube channel. You can put content out for people to consume. Back when we were, in this stage, radio was the only way to do that.
That was the medium.
And it was pretty tightly controlled as compared to, like I said, I mean, putting stuff on YouTube. I mean, you can be an Instagram star. I mean, these days. So it's like you've got the kids and they've got the smartphone and they've got practically. I mean, I've downloaded this app called Periscope, which is in some ways kind of like Facebook Live, but it's actually just dedicated to people who want to go online and you take your cell phone.
It's an instant broadcast in a way.
I've done it. I was at this little. I was visiting one of my friends, and I was seeing a live band playing. So I'll turn it on and broadcast it, and that was immediate. I mean, the thing with radio, and we kind of have to understand the changes that have been happening technologically, but also because of those changes in technology, they've had repercussions in social values and mores. We grew up with radio because radio, like you said, it was a very tangible thing, but also it was a great imaginary thing as well, because we would have in our minds, like, imagine what the DJ was doing at the station. We would imagine the songs, and before music videos really kicked in and stuff. So you would hear The Wall.
True.
And then you would have in your mind what was going on in that, or you listen to a Led Zeppelin song or whatever it was, and that would be a whole theater of the mind that does not. We don't really have that so much anymore because everything's so immediate. And I know I kind of feel that fallout myself because I'm using these apps on my smartphone, and I'm having a hard time like reading a book these days because I'm just so wrapped up in my phone.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that your theory is correct, and I also think that people, not only the democratization of sharing information, but also the fact that you've got Pandora and Spotify. I can have any song I want anytime I want. What am I going to waste time listening to a radio waiting for my favorite song like I know I did when I was a kid?
Remember
Same
that?
here.
You'd wait around WLS to play that song. You had your tape recorder ready to go with it.
But radio was always about who was on the air and how they were presenting it, and you wanted to know what they had to say about it.
Yeah.
Like when Larry Lujak first played Men at Work, he came on mic and he said, "What was that?" That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I did anyway.
Yeah.
I loved Larry, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but Larry Lujak, best memory. I was sitting on the front porch of my home listening to Larry. He played the Hollies' Long Cool Woman. It finished, and it was like dead silence. And then he goes, "That was great.
Wow. Yeah.
That was so great. I want to play it again. I'm going to play it again."
Yeah.
Playing it again. And I'm like, WLS or Super CFL. And, he could get away with that kind of stuff. But radio's different. And I consume satellite radio. There's a station I love called The Loft on Sirius XM. It's very eclectic. And what did they do?
Yeah.
They took it off the satellite.
Oh, I know.
I can't hear it on the car. I can hear it on the app.
Oh,
and it's
okay.
Still amazing.
Because they've got the coffee house. It's like a close second. But yeah, I like The Loft.
Yeah, The Loft is great. But the sad thing is, I don't know if it's funding. They've cut back where they don't even have DJs. They have special shows.
Yeah.
So they'll have a special show with one of my favorite DJs, Chris Muckley there. He has this Chris Muckley show, which is great. I can listen to it on demand. I can hear it. But it's not like that person that is sitting there with you, listening to the song at the same time you are reacting to it. And just like, it's like not an experience anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared this story before on this podcast, but just back to how we got interested in radio, and back in the mid to late 70s, where personality radio was just off the chart. We had the WLS Magic Bus during the summer.
Right.
They would drive around to neighborhoods. They would say, "Hey, we're going to be in Bolingbrook tomorrow at whatever neighborhood pool."
Right.
And John Landecker is going to be on the bus or something. And then they'd get off the bus, they'd sign autographs, give you a little survey, the top 40 listing and bumper stickers.
Yeah.
And you actually went downtown to the station and actually went up to the station to watch them in through the glass. I mean, that was.
I just reminded me, you're talking about that, reminded me, wasn't there this thing called Loop Fest or something that happened?
There was a Loop Fest, yeah.
And it happened over at
Navy Pier?
Navy Pier, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Mark McEwen as a DJ and a couple of others, and I remember them. And it was just like, wow, I can see the people I used to listen to. I'm listening to radio, I see them in person. Wow, isn't that cool? And that kind of I mean, you're never going to have that level of celebrity for the DJ that you had back then. I mean, now, what do you got? Eric, well, now you only have Eric and Kathy because
Kathy left.
Well, she had to, but I mean, but nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, these former greats. I mean, even like you're talking about satellite radio. I mean, even Howard Stern's kind of a shell of what he used to be.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you think, I think back and, I don't know if you guys had regular listeners. I know I had them. They would, request the same song or whatever.
Sure.
And, it was almost like clockwork, and I kind of loved that they were dedicated. And I found when I was unearthing things before the reunion, and let me know if you're running out of time here, but when I was unpacking stuff from Sandy's radio box, because I have a big box of like all my memorabilia from all my radio stations that I've worked at. And I found 2 notebooks full of, I wrote down every song that I played on every show, but this was only in 78 and 79. And I wrote, like, if it was a request, I put an X, and I wrote what city it came from. So here's Lyle, here's Bolingbroke, here's Hinsdale, and, Downers. And, oh my gosh, I'm like, when I looked at it now, I was like, were there that many requests? We kicked butt.
Yeah. Well, speaking of memorabilia, hold on a second. Keep talking, Dave.
Okay.
Well,
Sandy, I just wanted to say that
I had a question.
your voice has really good resonance. Have you ever thought of doing news?
Oh, look at that. Oh, look at you. He's breaking out the...
Yeah.
Dave is evidently referring to how I got my start. Because at DGC, Fred, and I'll take a look at the, is that a cassette?
Do you see this?
Yes.
These are all of our shows.
How beautiful.
Yeah, this is actually one of like 3 containers. But yeah, all of our shows were recorded, and we play them on this podcast. Like we have like a feature segment from the old days, and we'll play some of the old stuff. So
that is way cool. First
That's
of all,
worth more than $1 million.
I wish I had a basement studio, but I wish I had a basement, because here in Arizona,
no basements there.
Has a basement. Yeah. And the second thing is, in my garage, I have a huge box of air checks. Sadly, they've been in my garage, and as you know, it reaches 100, 122 degrees out here. They're probably wrecked. But I do have a few of my favorite air checks in the house.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I'm sure I've wrecked. And I have reel-to-reel tapes, too. I even have an old Revox sitting in my coat closet.
Oh, here he goes.
And you've got them too.
You got to digitize all that stuff.
This is my Radio 2 project program.
How awesome. Isn't it awesome to remember? Like, wasn't the reunion so cool to just remember?
Oh, yeah.
Things and to find out things that you didn't know, like what happened to this person, or
did you see anybody there who was on the air at the same time as you, same years?
I did. I did see a few people. Vic Drescher was there.
Yeah.
I was hoping that
I worked with Vic at a station.
You worked with him too?
Yeah.
You mean worked employed wise?
And radio, yeah.
Oh, very cool.
He's an engineer.
Yeah, I saw him. A few of the people, some of the people that I really wanted to make it just couldn't make it, and I was kind of sad about that. But I think Ed was on with me. Ed Geis. I think he was in my class or era.
I didn't get to meet him.
He went on the air after me, and I begged him to, because he's like, I ain't gonna do that. And I said, you're shorting yourself. You have no idea how fun it's going to be. You're going to love it. You got to do it. You're an alum and you got to do it. And he did it. And I listened to him after I was on my way to my 40th high school reunion, which was held the same weekend. I had 2 reunions the whole weekend.
Yeah, it was good timing for the reunion to be on the same weekend.
Yeah,
that was great.
I lobbied hard for that. But I listened to Ed, and he was wonderful. He was having a great time, and I thought, just to go into that time machine, and but I did want to ask you guys, what was the studio like when it was new?
Wow. So yeah, I remember they made the move. I think they had to shut down the air signal for I don't know how many days, but they had to transfer everything over, and I don't even know. This part of it was kind of phasey for me because I was a freshman when it happened, and I didn't have my own show yet. I think I was given on-air opportunities like on summer break or Easter holiday or something. You get Wednesday from 12 to 2 or something. But other than that, my first show was really my sophomore year. So I think they made the move towards the end of my freshman year, I think early 81. So I don't really remember firing up the station yet. I was still doing my Radio 1, Radio 2 classes at that point. But yeah, it was all brand new.
Same board?
The Sparta
Everything-
AS 40B.
Yeah, it was the same board. Then later on, they changed it to the vertical faders.
Yeah, that came
we
much
still
later.
had the
Yeah.
round.
Oh,
the
I
round
see.
rounds.
Okay, so you brought
Yeah.
the board over from the portable,
That was over there.
and then
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
got the fader
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During your
Yeah.
time there?
What's that?
During your time there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Wait.
No, we didn't have vertical faders.
No.
We never had that.
That came much later.
That came later after we graduated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be a
Yeah, I
90s
used
thing.
vertical at a lot of stations that I was at.
Yeah. And certainly
They're better.
the digital
They're much
carts
better.
now. I mean, yeah, that's totally new.
But
Yeah.
I remember that at South Studio, they had pretty much had a similar. I don't know if they had the Sparta AS40 or whatever, but they definitely had the round potentiometers like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say,
I just wanted to, before we move on to something else about the resonance comment before.
Yeah.
That was such a great story. It had all the elements of a classic radio story because you wanted to get on the air. Fred said something nice to you, said you had a nice voice, which you do. And then he put you on the air reading news, right?
Reading news.
That's how you started. And then
Really?
the classic story is that somebody doesn't show up for their show, or they're sick, or they can't make it, or they get fired in the real world, right? And you're there, and then you got to go on,
I
right?
did. I'm like, Mom,
And then you had to call your
Bring all the
mom
records.
to bring your records, right?
yeah, bring all the records.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
need
just
more
a
records.
classic story. I mean, you hear different versions of that story from people in radio that they got on the air almost as a fluke.
Yeah.
And then once you get on, then you prove yourself, and then you're on forever.
Yeah, Fred was like, yeah, I think you can do this, and he gave me a shift, and I, like I said somewhere, I don't know how long I would have been reading news if that hadn't have happened.
I just had a quick question, kind of dovetailing on that. Actually, is that once you did get your shift and you did get a show and to present, and you brought your records over, what were you playing? I mean, what was the kind of music that? Because obviously you had a chance to choose your own music. So what kind of music were you playing back then in the late 70s?
It was all to give a short answer. It was music I owned, but to give the long answer, we would plan, and I say we because I really felt like my teammates, the other DJs, we would supplement each other's record collections, and
That's
then
cool.
I had two sisters and a brother, and the two sisters, if Tracy bought Jeff Beck, I wasn't going to buy Jeff Beck. She had all the Beatles, whereas Mary would have, this, so we all, between the three of us, we had a pretty dynamite record collection. And when we would play music, we would, I think it kind of morphed a little bit because I was a big personally, like what I personally loved was like ELP, yes, early Genesis, kind of progressive.
Oh, okay, prog
but
rock. Okay.
I also loved like Deep Purple and Rush and, some of that. But I would buy stuff, Boston, Thin Lizzy. I would play pretty much anything. And then we started to get into, and a lot of what you played depended on whom you were with. So if I was with Bob Whaley or Brian Reed or whoever, they'd bring their, Stewart was a big Elton John fan. So, we would always play a lot of Elton John when I was with Stewart. But over time, I was very broad interest-wise in music. I'd go to tons of concerts, and I'd buy tons of records. And if somebody asked for Ted Nugent, maybe he wasn't my top favorite, but I'd buy it because I wanted to have it on the air. So I
That's
really,
cool.
honestly, I had jobs, and I spent my entire paycheck on records. I
Yeah.
can tell you that for a fact. For
I
years.
can relate.
For years.
Oh yeah, that was where my money went. But I remember when I did play records in the early days before I did the talk thing, I used to, bring the record crates, but they would be my parents' albums. So I would take them with me because my parents were all into, all the same music that you were just mentioning there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're making me feel old.
I mean, they took me to, Pink Floyd The Wall concert in New York. That was like a surprise. I was supposed to be going to the dentist. They were surprising me. So they were really cool parents. But
Are you serious? They told you were going to the dentist and that turned into a Pink Floyd. Oh.
Yeah. They said, I'm taking you out of school. You have a dentist appointment at 1:00, so we're picking you up at 11. And my dad is sitting in the car.
So you're sweating bullets, and you're just thinking this is like the worst day of my life.
Yeah, and my mom and dad are both in the car, and I'm thinking, why is dad off today? Oh, it's like I didn't feel good. I'm just going along for the ride. And all of a sudden, we're going to O'Hare.
Oh.
So anyway, I got off on a tangent there. But the reason why I brought it up was that I was playing their records on the air, and then I would get after the show, my mom would say, "You didn't ask for permission to bring my Led Zeppelin album." It's like she knew I didn't have it, but I took her record. So yeah.
Yeah, I got later into like punk and new wave, and I remember at WDCB, which was the station at College DuPage.
Yeah, I worked at that station.
You worked there too?
Jerry and I both did.
Yeah, we both did.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
very cool.
Dave
well,
did.
I used to do a Saturday morning show called Prime Cuts, and it was very eclectic. It was all kinds of stuff, and my final show, I decided to make it strictly punk new wave. So it was kind of a punk party.
Great.
It was
that's cool. That's cool.
Probably the first and last time those records ever got played there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked at all kinds of formats in my life. I think my trajectory would have been completely different if I had accepted a job at satellite radio. It was 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I got offered a job, $20 an hour, which was buku buck back then.
Yeah, in 87, it would have been big money.
And it was a country station, and I just don't do country. I do classic country, and I love bluegrass, but country, So I kind of just passed on that job, and I tried to want to do it, but at that point, my husband and I had decided we were going to move to Arizona, and that's what we did. And I got on the air at a number of stations in Arizona, so it turned out all right. We always meant to come back, but we never did.
Yeah. I just one thing I wanted to add to that is that somebody you mentioned that that one show you played all this new wave and punk, and you kind of because you wanted to do that, and both Dave and I had an ability at DCB to do that. He was able to do a really good blues show, which I still think is a watermark blues show for that station. And I had the ability to do a thing called the 70s Soul Jam, where I could focus on soul music from basically the 70s and just play the stuff.
I would have loved to listen to either of your shows.
What we did a crossover. He would do the blues show. What was it from
Friday
10 to 12?
10 to 12. I was 10 to 12. You were,
and I was from midnight to 2. And it was great because we'd have a crossover. He would play kind of a more soul blues sort of thing, or something that could kind of have that kind of feel to it, and I'd play some bluesy soul, and we'd have a little banter and talk about, so it was kind of great to have that. So it was a good transition between the two genres. Well, not
every student, I mean, it wasn't like a student station like WDGC.
No, that's true. It wasn't.
No.
Remember?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but very few students ran any shows.
It's a professionally run, it's a professional station with a hired staff, and they can hire 3 students.
Mm-hmm.
And then
is that right?
Yeah, and then everybody else is a volunteer.
And I did the show.
One. I did get paid.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Because
that's cool.
Usually you don't.
Yeah.
I was going to wind things down here because we're actually kind of going on 45 minutes, I think. I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to be not a 15-minute bit. In fact, this
should be a whole show, I think.
I was thinking about that, but the problem is this is episode 99. I don't want... We're doing something special for 100. So it's just going to be one massive 99.
This is perfect, though, because isn't it School District 99?
Yes, High School District 99.
Very good. That's a good tie-in. That's nice.
Now it all makes sense.
It all makes sense. So it's going to be a 2-hour show. So that's okay. And it'll be coming out tonight. So we'll give you the link.
You have the freedom.
That's true.
That's right. It can do anything you want. Hey, I had 2 remaining things here just I wanted to mention. I did pick out from your show, I thought it was very interesting that you were the first female on the station to get or to earn her second-class radio telephone license.
Yeah.
None of us here did that.
No
so
way.
that's kudos to you.
No, come on.
No, third.
No, I didn't get second class. No way.
I did test for my first.
Wow. You have
But-
to like to know the
but
inside of a
bad-
transmitter, don't
So
you?
you're mathematical and engineering savvy?
No. I tested for my first, but I didn't get it. And one of the reasons I didn't get it is I took the train into Chicago to take the test. And I was going with a guy friend of mine. And I said, you know what? I bet you could get your third class license. He's like, bull. And I said, you can. So the whole train ride, I tested him and taught him everything. And we wound up getting out of there. And he left with an E.J. Galen signed license.
Oh, that's awesome.
Third class. And
That's
I
so
left
great.
with nothing because I didn't pass.
Oh, but that's amazing.
See, I don't even remember going downtown to the FCC building.
Yeah,
I
we
think we
did.
did that in the classroom.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we didn't
Wait
do
a
that.
minute. What do you mean? You did that in the class?
Our class, the whole class went. Yeah.
Oh, the whole class. Oh, I thought you meant that they tested you.
For
in
the
class.
the third class.
No, for me, I'm saying
Yeah, you didn't.
our class did not go into the city.
Oh.
They gave us a test, I think, in the classroom, and it got mailed in, and we got the. Here it is. There's my license.
There you go.
Still have it.
Well, I did get that second class, and I was very happy to have gotten it because the second class was all the formulas. Actually,
Yeah, all the
I was
electrical.
so intimidated by that.
I
didn't
and I
even-
just
I didn't even want to
got
attempt it.
my ham radio technician license.
Wow. Oh, man.
Yeah.
You're out geeking us.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I have to get a radio so I can use it. But my call sign is K7SGR, which K is this side of the Mississippi,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
7. That's just the way they do things. They actually gave me one, so mine is actually a vanity because I didn't. The one they gave me was like KU17UKT or something like that, and I'm like, forget that. So, anyway,
Yeah.
That is so
something
awesome.
inspires
I always
me,
wanted to do that too.
Yeah, me too. I never
that's
did
so
that.
great. Now, how often is ham radio used nowadays? Because with the internet, and how often do you get to use that?
Well,
Or is it-
depending on the population, because I live in Mesa, Arizona, and the guys that taught me, they're all seniors, and a lot of them are winter visitors, and they use it every day. But in emergencies, and the other thing they use it for is road races. Like if you have, they'll be at a mile marker and they'll say, "Hey, here comes number 59. She's really struggling. Would you watch on her? Keep an eye on her." So they do different things. They have big conferences and they go out to Quartzsite in the middle of nowhere and they talk to people all over the world. It's pretty interesting community. I thought to do it just for the heck of it because I had just retired from my full-time job and I said, time to do new things. So
By the way, judging by your avatar, you look way too young to be retired.
I did retire young, but I had my points. I worked for the city of Mesa, and
Well, that helps.
Yeah, kind of lucky. All the planets got in the right line, and I'm ready for stage 3 in my life. So it might involve radio. At the 40th reunion, I met somebody who's starting an internet radio station and asked if I would be on it. So we'll see what happens.
That's
great.
my interest. We need to do that.
One thing I really admired about something you said on your show, on your WDGC reunion show, was that you realized that the life that you were living was not really conducive to raising a 5-year-old son. So I really admired you for making that career change into library science.
Well,
Because that was an amazing thing to do. I really respected that.
I knew a couple of things. One of them was that I was not, and my husband reminds me of this sometimes, I was not, I was never going to be one of the top people in radio. I just wasn't a personality. My goal was always, just because I loved it and I loved doing it and I wanted to do a good job and I wanted to, use my voice that way. But I was never going to be a huge earner and I never wanted to be nomadic. I never wanted to have to, figure out what city to move to for my next job. I was lucky.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I got to do stations in Illinois. Then we moved to Arizona and I did a whole bunch of stations in Arizona and then I changed gears. But in high school, I worked in the library, volunteered in the library all 4 years, and worked there during the summer doing inventory. So, library and radio was like, which one? So I got the luck to do both, and it did fit my lifestyle a lot better.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, just closing out, a total non sequitur here. Did you ever hear of the name Wayne Leela in your day?
Why does that sound familiar?
Okay, so this guy lived at the Tivoli Hotel, and he used to listen to WDGC and complain if he heard swear words and satanic messages in rock music, and he would just torture all the students in our day. And I didn't know how far back he goes or he went.
The name is very familiar.
So we became.
He ran for president.
He did in '84. He didn't do too well in the New Hampshire primaries. Yeah. But no, we had him on our show. We tried to become friends with him so he would back off of us. And so, he was kind of a creepy guy, and I didn't know if you knew who he was.
And then they gave him a show. They gave him a show to keep him quiet.
He had a classical show on Sunday nights.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, they did for a while. Then they kicked him off.
It's community radio at its best.
Yes. Well, Sandy, this has been fantastic, and we've had such a good time talking with you.
I have had a blast talking with you guys, both meeting you at the reunion, and now it's just awesome. Thank you so much for the invite. I really enjoyed myself.
Thanks, Sandy.
And thanks for coming on the show, and we'll definitely keep in touch. And you're in our network now.
Awesome. Keep it up. You guys are doing a marvelous job. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
And thank you all three.
You too, Sandy.
Yeah. Yep. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
All right.
Well. That wraps it up here for a very long episode 99 Smorg Show podcast. Our phone number is 312-95-SMORG, SMORG. Phone number, website, smorgshow.com, and our email, feedback@smorgshowpodcast.com. Hey guys, I had a good time with you.
Thanks, Chris.
Same here.
As always, episode 100 is next. Date to be determined, but it's going to be a good one, and we'll talk to you then. I get up in the morning and I say, blue!